Hi there, welcome to this video where I'm going to introduce you to DxO PhotoLab 9. Simon from DxO reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in looking at some of their software, and we had a very productive Zoom meeting last week, and I discussed the fact that I already use DxO Pure Raw. In fact, it's an essential part of my workflow. Pretty much all of the photos that I take, if I've used ISO above more than about 600, will use some kind of noise reduction, and I found that Pure Raw is probably one of the best pieces of software that I've come across. In this video, what I'm going to be doing is showing you my first impressions of DxO PhotoLab, and hopefully it will really change the way that I edit photographs and really speed up the workflow, because it really does seem like it will meet my needs. Now, I will just say that DxO have given me free rein to say whatever I want. Yes, they did provide the licenses, but they are not controlling what I say, so this is completely my own opinion. So sit back and I hope you enjoy finding out how this piece of software might help you to enjoy your photography. Before we get started, I do want to make clear that this is not a tutorial, because I'm not an expert in this piece of software at all, but I thought it'd be quite useful to give you my first opinions on how easy it is to just pick up straight out of the box and start using it, because I already use Photoshop and I feel very comfortable with that. But I am actually thinking of trying to move away from the subscription model, and this piece of software is a one-off payment, so there's no subscription with it. So if I can find alternatives, then I'm going to be happy, because I can move away from that tie of the subscription. PhotoLab 9 has lots of features, and I have watched many YouTube videos just to try and get used to the piece of software. But in this video, I will probably not cover them all, because I want to try and give you a true version of how it might help you as a beginner, because that's where I am coming at this piece of software from. The first thing that will open is the photo library here in PhotoLab. Now, this feels to me very reminiscent of Bridge, because that's what I use all the time. I've never really got into Lightroom, and there are similarities between this photo library and Lightroom. Apparently Lightroom has a few more options, and it works slightly differently because Lightroom builds a catalogue and PhotoLab just looks at where you store the photos on your hard disk, and any changes that you make to photos get stored in a separate little sidecar file. I've opened File Explorer on the screen to show you what I mean by a sidecar. You can see this photograph just here, and that is 121 megabytes, so it's quite a big file, and that's a digital negative. But next to it is its associated sidecar file, and you can see over here that that is 9K, so it's really small, but that will store any edits that you make to the photograph or any tags that you put on the photographs. So the original photograph is not changed, so it's completely non-destructive. There are lots of ways of ranking and tagging your photographs to help you choose the good ones. Now, this is something that I've never really done in the past, but I think it's something that I will start to introduce into my workflow, because normally I just go through the photographs and then delete them if I don't think they're any good. But I think this is probably a better way of just streamlining that workflow. So on the screen at the moment is a photo of a Canada goose, and if I like the photo, I can click this green button just here to accept it. But if I decide I don't like it, I can click the red button underneath and that rejects it, and you can see that the thumbnail gets grayed out. Underneath the photo is a star rating, so you can give it a ranking of whatever you want. I'm going to give it 4 stars. And then later on you can go back and you can search based on the star rating as well. And then you can also click with the right button and you can set a color label as well. So you can search via color labels. So there are lots of ways of helping you find the photographs you want in the future, either by the star ratings or the color ratings. But one that I really like, and I've spent a bit of time going through all of this year's photographs to tag them. So again, this photograph here on the screen, if you look over on the right, there are keywords that you can assign to all of the photographs, and they get stored in that sidecar that I mentioned earlier. You can see over here I've already started to add some categories. I've got birds, I've got location, reserves, just things that I think will help me find birds and places that I've been. The only keyword that is attached to this bird is Lunt Meadows, because that's the reserve I was at when I took this photograph. If I want to add another keyword, that's a really simple thing to do. All I need to do is go to birds, and I'm going to label this as a Canada goose. Now I've already added some Canada geese to the keyword library, so this will appear here. So all I need to do is do a check in there, and that is it. Now if there was a bird or a location that I hadn't already put into the library, all I need to do is just type it into that keyword box there, and it will appear in the list. One final thing that I found really useful, that might seem like a small thing, but it is really useful, is you can set a folder to be a favorite. Now at the moment you can see I've got all of the folders on my hard disk, which is sometimes difficult to find. But if I right click on a folder, then I've got the option to add it to the favorites, which I've already done with my photographs folder. So now if I go to the favorites, then the only thing that appears here are just all of my photographs. I found a photograph that I'd like to edit, so I'll take you through some of the steps now. So I've highlighted that photograph, and so straight away it gives you any tags that you've assigned to it, any ratings that you've assigned, and also the shooting data as well. But we can go into now the customize section of PhotoLab, and that allows you to do lots of raw editing and denoising and sharpening and lots more as well. So you can do that simply by double clicking on the thumbnail or by clicking customize just here. The customize window looks slightly different. On the left hand side is the histogram. There's also a little bit of an indication whereabouts in the image you're looking at, and then there's also a history panel. Along the bottom are all the thumbnails, so this is really still the photo library. Along the top of the screen we've got quite a lot of options and tools available. So the first section is the compare section. So if I just make this image brighter, then I can do things like split the screen vertically and horizontally, and we can also have a slider that will go backwards and forwards. So this is a really quick way of comparing the before and afters. Now the next button is really important to mention. This is the loop tool, because this doesn't only just magnify a certain portion of the image. Certain corrections that you make, and particularly the denoise function, will only appear within the loop, and this is to save processing power, and rather than affecting the whole image and taking longer to process, it will just show you a preview within the loop. Over on the right hand side, this toolbar is going to be where you spend most of your time, because this really does the same kind of thing as Camera Raw or Lightroom. It's a typical RAW editor, but with extra features as well. One thing to bear in mind, if you've got a favorite tool, just here there is a star, so you can click that star and favorite that function, and then those functions will appear in the favorites menu, and all the other things that you don't use as much will disappear. So that's quite useful as well. But let's put the full menu back on. Here in this menu that is titled Light, we can control the exposure, and obviously you can give it more, less exposure. This image wasn't exposed particularly badly, so I don't need to do very much to this. Next we have smart lighting. Now smart lighting is really quite clever. What it does is it extends the dynamic range of your image, and it will correct any underexposed or overexposed areas. So that's quite handy. Now it will do it automatically if it's turned on, but if you don't want that to happen, you just click that switch and it doesn't do it automatically, it turns itself off. Underneath that are some very familiar sliders: highlights, midtones, shadows and blacks. Now notably there's not a white slider, don't know why that is. Underneath that is something called Clear View Plus. Now I suppose in Photoshop then clarity is the equivalent for this, but this will reduce haze and increase contrast, but I'm going to leave that where it is. We don't need to do that. And then we've got a specific contrast section just here. Then we've got a tone curve, which is exactly the same as you'd expect from any tone curve you'd see in other programs. So we can change the blacks and the whites, or we can give it an S curve if you prefer that kind of thing. And then we've got an auto vignette correction, and the way that this works is PhotoLab will read the metadata and work out what combination of camera and lens you used and make the corrections appropriate to that lens. Now you can see all of the modules that I've installed, so I've got quite a few different cameras. I've gone back to quite an old camera here, so it's gone back to a D300 with a Nikon 18-200, that's quite an old photograph, right up to my Z8 with quite a few different lenses that I've used with that. So far I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 different cameras that I've taken photographs with, and that's just as I've been browsing through my images, and it just downloads those modules automatically as it finds new camera profiles. The next tab is a color section, so there's lots of useful functions here to adjust the color. So firstly we've got white balance, which is fairly self-explanatory. You've got lots of choices of the way that the color is rendered, so you've got different profiles that you can choose. It's fairly self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go into that. Then we've got a section where you can add a LUT to change the look of your image. Now it's something that I never really do for bird photography, but if that's what you're into, then you can download some LUTs and that's where they'll appear. Then we've got a hue, saturation and levels wheels. So the outside wheel will change the overall tone of the image, and if you do want to get it back to where you started from, then you can just click the reset button. And then if we use the color picker, I can choose a particular color, and at the moment I've just chosen the red on the breast of this bullfinch, and then I can selectively just change that color. So instead of a red bullfinch, I've now got a green bullfinch. Now so far everything we've looked at is what you would have normally found in a RAW editor. Now I use Camera Raw, but I could do everything here in PhotoLab, but I would have had to go to another program to do the noise reduction, and that's where I use Pure Raw. But everything is all in one program here, which is really handy. So the next tab is the Detail tab. First in the Detail tab we have the denoising, and if you're familiar with Photo Raw, this will be very familiar to you because there are different engines that are used just to do the denoising. I always use the most powerful one, which is DeepPRIME XD. But if I click this, then you'll see that nothing actually happens to the image. If I use the comparison, the noise is still there. Now if you remember what I said earlier about the loop button, then if I click on the loop, then what this will do is it will process the area just within that loop and apply the denoising to that area, and it saves on processing power because it takes quite a bit of time just to process all of that. And you can see that just this small section here is taking quite a while, but that now shows you what that denoising will look like. The next tab down is lens sharpness optimization. Now you can have this set to be on automatically or turn it off. So if I turn it off, you can see the difference that it's made. And then finally we've got an unsharp mask, which if you weren't getting quite enough sharpness from the lens sharpness optimization, you can add a bit of further sharpening. Now, as with any sharpening, you can always go too far and make the thing look unnatural, but if you do it in a subtle and gentle way, it can just add an extra bit of sharpness if it wasn't quite there, so that's useful to have as well. Next we have the geometry tab, and this will really appeal to landscape photographers or particularly people who are photographing architecture. So there's a few things that are fairly obvious. We can level the horizon, and there's a crop tool. Here we have a distortion tab, and this works by looking at the DxO module that links to your camera and lens profile, and it will correct any barreling or distortion that has been applied by the lens. You can see by this photograph that the two structures either side of the cathedral are converging. So if converging verticals are something that you don't want, then you can click on the perspective tool and it will automatically level that up. But if you want to correct perspective manually, that's also fairly easy. Just up here there is some perspective handles, so if you move these towards what you want to level up and align them, and that's it, very quick to do, then you click apply and that will then straighten up the image based on what you've told it to do, and I think that's actually done a better job, and with a little bit of a crop that would be really effective. Now finally we have the effects tab, and I think it's fairly self-explanatory what all of these do, but they give your photographs different looks, so you can apply a miniature effect, a filter effect, grain, creative vignetting, blur, texture, and light leaks as well. So there's lots of ways of being creative, but because I mainly take photographs of wildlife, this section is something that I probably won't use a great deal. Right over on the far right hand side is a really powerful function, and this is the masking options. Now again, this is not a new thing because it's available in Camera Raw and Lightroom, but there are AI masks which work really well. So you've got a mask you can brush on, but you've got linear masks and gradient masks as well that you would be used to, luminosity masks, but what I really like is the AI mask function. So if I click on the AI mask button just up here, I get lots of options, so I can choose what I want the program to look for, and if I choose animals, straight away what it's done is it's created a mask of the bird, which is really handy. And if I invert that mask, then what's going to happen is the bird will be unselected, but the background now is selected. So this is going to be really useful because I could just take down the exposure of the background to make the bird stand out. Now obviously I don't want to make it too obvious, but just a subtle reduction in exposure will just make that bird pop even more. Once you've done some edits, the thumbnail will change and this little icon will appear to show that edits have been made. So you could technically close down the program and come back and carry on later because all of those changes have been saved in a sidecar file, but you will need to then export that file into the format of your choice. Now you've got quite a few options available. So if we look at what's available, you can export to disk, so you can export it as JPEG, TIFF, or whatever you particularly wanted. You can export to an application, to Flickr, or to Lightroom. Now I've set it to export to Photoshop just in case there's any more little tweaks that I need to do, but when you click export to application, you get lots of other options as well. So again, you can choose the format that you want to export into, and you can also change things like resolution and which bits of metadata get included along with it. Well, I'll definitely be using DxO PhotoLab as part of my everyday workflow. I just find having all the tools in one place really handy. I can do my raw editing, my denoising, lens sharpening, and lots of other things all in one program, and it will just really speed up the way that I work. Now, am I ready to ditch Photoshop just yet? I'm not sure I am, because I feel very attached to it, very familiar with it because I've been using it for 25 years. But I am looking into alternatives alternatives, and Affinity Photo is now free of charge, and it does provide a lot of the same functions. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time trying to get used to that, and I'll keep you updated. If this video has made you interested in getting DxO PhotoLabs for yourself, then you've got a few options. The first is to download the free trial from the DxO website, and you can check it out free of charge. And if you do like it after that, then DxO have provided me with a 15% discount code, so you can use Enjoy15 at checkout and get some money off. Thanks again to DxO for providing me with the licenses for this software. It's definitely going to be part of my everyday routine moving forward, and I think that it'd be worth you giving it a look. If you did enjoy that video, I'll link another one just up here that you might enjoy. You can leave me a comment down below, or go over to my Instagram, Facebook or Vero account and leave me your comments there. You can do me a really big favour by clicking the like, subscribe and the bell notifications, because it really does help me out and it makes sure that you don't miss out on any future content. But all that's left now is to say, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.